Today in Real Life Archives, the perfect bank heist.
Welcome to what is widely considered the absolute greatest, most cinematic robbery in human history, the 2006 Banco Río heist in Argentina. We're looking at a true story of meticulous planning, brilliant psychology, and an execution so flawless that it literally humiliated the authorities while completely captivating an entire nation. It really is the perfect bank heist.
So to really set the scene here, I want you to imagine being part of a massive response team. 300 heavily armed police officers and elite tactical snipers surrounding a bank. You've been stuck in this agonizing, highly tense 8-hour standoff. And when your tactical team finally breaches the doors and storms the vault expecting a massive shootout, you don't find one. Instead, you find this mocking, poetic note left behind in a totally empty room. In a neighborhood of rich folks, without weapons or grudges, it's just money and not love.
It's crazy, right? The sheer impossibility of the scene the police walked into at 8:30 p.m. on January 13th is just baffling. They found 23 completely unharmed hostages. They found weapons scattered all over the floor that turned out to be cheap plastic toys. And most baffling of all, there were no robbers. Absolutely none. How do 5 men, surrounded by a massive, watertight police perimeter, just vanish into thin air? Part 1. Designing the perfect crime, the mastermind's vision. To understand how they pulled off this vanishing act, we've got to rewind about a year and a half. The architect behind this whole operation was Fernando Araujo. Get this, he was a martial arts instructor, an artist, and a marijuana cultivator with absolutely zero criminal record. Zero. He basically treated this heist as a giant conceptual art project. He spent his time obsessively studying police manuals, and he ended up discovering a crucial flaw. He developed this thing he called the hybrid doctrine. See, he realized that authorities had strict protocols for dealing with a hostage situation, and they had protocols for an underground bank vault break-in, but they had absolutely no combined protocol for both happening at the exact same time. He figured out that a loud, highly visible hostage crisis would completely paralyze the police on the surface, which would give them the perfect cover for a silent robbery happening right underground. But obviously, Araujo couldn't pull this off alone, so he assembled a highly specialized crew, pretty much creating a real-life Ocean's 11, where every single person had a scientifically divided role. You had Mario Villette, known as the man in the gray suit, who literally took theater classes so he could prepare for his role as the police negotiator. Then you had the engineer, Sebastian Garcia Bolster, who was in charge of building a subterranean dam. You had experienced criminals like Beto to handle crowd control on the floor, a dedicated getaway driver named El Paisa, and 2 totally mysterious figures known only as El Nene and the Ghost, who just operated in the shadows.
Part 2. The ultimate diversion, a tale of 2 heists. With the team ready and months of prep in the bag, the actual day of the heist was just a masterclass in psychological manipulation. At 12:20 p.m., Beto walks into the bank disguised in a white doctor's coat, projecting total calm. By 12:38, the bank is officially taken. By 12:50, this massive crisis is broadcasting live on national television, and 300 police officers are locking down the entire block. But the crew? They weren't panicking at all. They were perfectly on schedule. By 4:30 p.m., just to stall for even more time and make the cops think they were cornered, desperate thieves, they actually started ordering pizzas for the hostages. This split-screen reality of that afternoon is incredibly important to understand. Let's break it down. Upstairs, Mario Villette is putting on the performance of a lifetime. He's on the phone with elite police negotiators, acting super erratic, and he's even getting the hostages to sing happy birthday to another captive just to pass the time. But downstairs, down in the vault, it is total silence and efficiency. The rest of the crew is using a custom-built pneumatic hydraulic tool, which they dubbed the power cannon, to silently crack open 145 safe deposit boxes, taking just seconds for each one. Part 3. The subterranean escape, vanishing into thin air. Okay, so the bags are packed with millions in cash and jewels. But once they actually had the money, how on earth did they get past the 300 police officers waiting right outside the front doors? Well, the answer was entirely underground. Step 1. The crew knocked down a fake wall they had secretly built behind a heavy filing cabinet in the vault, and they retreated into a 150-meter tunnel they had spent months digging by hand. Step 2. This tunnel connected directly to the city's storm drains, where the engineer had built a dam to raise the water level. They loaded all the loot into inflatable boats and literally sailed away beneath the city's streets. Step 3.
14 blocks away, they pulled up right under a manhole, and waiting perfectly positioned above them was a Volkswagen Kombi van they'd bought with a fake ID. They'd actually cut a hole in the floor of the van that perfectly matched the manhole cover, so they just hoisted the bags up with a police system and drove away completely unseen. Meanwhile, back at the bank, the police were still outside negotiating with empty air. By the time the tactical unit finally breached the doors at 8:30 p.m., they were stunned. 23 terrified but perfectly safe hostages, some toy guns, 145 completely emptied safe deposit boxes, and, just to add insult to injury, fake plastic explosives, which are known as kazabobos, wired to the vault door. That little trick forced the bomb squad to waste another 2 whole hours just making sure the building was safe to walk through.
Part 4. The unexpected betrayal. The fatal flaw.
Up to this point, it was, by all accounts, the perfect crime. They got the money, they left 0 physical evidence, and they completely outsmarted the state's entire security apparatus. But you know how it goes. Every perfect crime has a fatal flaw. And just a month after pulling off the impossible, the crew's downfall came from entirely outside the bank's walls. It wasn't some brilliant detective who cracked the case. No, the perfect heist was undone by a scorned wife, acting out of pure jealousy and revenge. Here is exactly how the whole thing unraveled. Alicia DeTullio was married to Beto de la Torre. If you remember, he was the muscle who first entered the bank disguised as a doctor. Well, Alicia discovered that Beto was planning to take his massive cut of the millions and flee the country to Paraguay. But here is the real kicker. She found out he was planning to take his mistress with him. So, in retaliation for the heartbreak and the betrayal, she marched straight to the police, picked up the phone, and handed them the names of the entire crew.
Part 5. The Unsolved Millions. The Legacy of the Banco Río Heist.
So the police swooped in, making arrests and bringing the crew to trial. But despite capturing the masterminds, the true legacy of this heist remains totally unsolved to this day. Just think about this staggering number, $19 million. That is the estimated amount of cash, foreign currency, and jewels that the crew hauled out of those 145 safe deposit boxes and floated down the storm drains that afternoon. Now, compare that massive haul to what was actually recovered by the authorities. Out of roughly $19 million and 80 kilograms of jewels, they only ever managed to recover a little over $1 million during the raids. Over $17 million completely vanished into the ether. And the legal outcome? It's honestly just as shocking. Because the crew deliberately used toy guns instead of real firearms, the courts were legally forced to drastically reduce their prison sentences on appeal. The law simply didn't view it as a violent armed robbery. And because of those reduced sentences, today, every single member of the captured crew is a free man, and they are living some bizarrely fascinating post-heist lives. Fernando Araujo, our mastermind, became a filmmaker and actually wrote the screenplay for a blockbuster movie about his own robbery. Mario Vitet was deported to Uruguay, where, ironically enough, he now runs a jewelry store. The getaway driver studied law in prison and is now a criminal defense attorney. The engineer fixes jet skis. And the ghost, the unknown man who helped empty the vault, was never even identified by the police. He remains completely free, having never spent a single day in a cell. It is a story that absolutely defies belief, and it leaves us with one massive, lingering question. With over $17 million still totally unaccounted for, scattered who knows where across the globe, what would you have done with the missing millions? Let us know your best theories down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this explainer diving into the perfect crime, make sure to subscribe to Real Life Archives for more incredible deep dives into history's most fascinating events. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
This is just one story. There are many more you wouldn't believe. Subscribe for the next one.